You know, I've really been enjoying the Nether Snapshot so far. We got ourselves our wonderful biomes, we got ourselves our wonderful new armor, and plus we got ourselves some really cool things. Now, for this Nether Snapshot, I'm going to be talking about my initial thoughts of what I think of all the features that we got so far, and then in the future snapshots, whenever we get more features like piglins, I may do something like this as well again. But we're just going to go ahead and get right into this. So for the Nether Snapshot, as I mentioned, I have been enjoying pretty much every feature. I've just been enjoying just exploring the Nether and seeing the wonderful new biomes that we got so far, such as the Soul Sand Valley, where you can find yourself just a bunch of gas spawning everywhere. Trust me, that's more of a nightmare biome more than anything, because you just don't want to end up spawning there and then having like thousands of gas just shooting fireballs at you. But of course, you can find yourself some really cool items like blue fire, and for blue fire, I definitely really have to say that this is a really cool feature. Now, one thing that a lot of people really don't know is that this actually burns you a lot quicker than actual fire. Like, it actually does 1 heart of damage, while standard orange fire or yellow fire, however you look at the color, it's going to deal only half a heart. So this is actually a much more of a dangerous flame than you probably initially thought. But you know, this is just a really cool biome other than that. But we also got ourselves the Warped Forest, which this is actually a really good biome if you want to get yourself tons and tons of ender pearls. Now, I really do think that there does need to be more things for this biome. Maybe some kind of really cool monster. Maybe some kind of new mob. I mean, you just never know what Mojang may actually do for this biome. Because as of right now, the only thing that's interesting about this biome is going to be the trees. And, of course, just the trees. There's really nothing else about this biome that makes it very interesting. But hey, right now, if you want to go ahead and make yourself some kind of Enderman farm, then you can go ahead and do that. Nothing is stopping you from doing that. Also, the Enderman is just taking a block. Okay, Enderman, please don't do that. Goodbye. See you later. You can just go ahead and fall in the lava. Now, for the Red Crimson Forest, this is also another really cool biome that we ended up getting inside the snapshot. And there is a brand new monster that you can find known as the Hoglin. Now, as of right now, the Hoglin doesn't really do anything. But if I can make a few suggestions for the Hoglin, maybe you can end up dropping its tusk. And then whenever you get yourself the tusk, you can use that as some kind of a horn. Kind of like what you hear with the raids. Maybe you could go ahead and use that to end up like sounding an alarm whenever a raid is about to begin. But also, it could end up dropping some kind of really cool food. And for that food, it would probably give you a small amount of fire resistance. Maybe like for 2 seconds or something like that. Not a big amount, but just a small little amount. But I think it would be really cool if you did get yourself a special food that you end up getting from him. But anyway, another thing that I kind of wish that Minecraft would have introduced for this was actually a way for you to cross the oceans of lava. I mean, right now, the only way that you can go across the lava ocean is if you have yourself like a fire resistance, or if you have yourself just the elytra to fly around, or something like that. But in terms of transportation, we really don't have ourselves like any kind of netherite boat that you can just use across the sea of lava. I think it would be really awesome that you can just go and have yourself a fire resistant boat. But speaking of netherite, the netherite is also a really awesome thing that we did get, and it's one of my favorite new types of tools. It's also my new type of armor. So if I were to go ahead and come over to armor, the armor gives you a lot of resistance. Now speaking of netherite, I have to say the netherite is probably one of the best things that Mojang ever did introduce to the game, because it has been 10 years since we did get ourselves new armor. And it was all the way back in the end of day. And getting new armor inside the game is always a good thing. But for netherite, this is the best armor that you can get. It's better than diamond, it's stronger than diamond, and it has some really good resistance for knockback as well. And come on, you gotta admit, this does look really awesome on you as well. Now, one thing I kind of wish that Mojang would have done for the netherite armor was whenever you go ahead and wear the full set, then you get yourself an infinite amount of fire resistance. So that way you can go ahead and walk onto magma blocks without crouching. You'll be able to go ahead and go through lava without worrying about burning, or even going through fire without worrying about burning as well. But for the armor right now, you actually do not have that ability to do any of that. And I think it would just be a really cool property of this armor. Because if you look at netherite, if I go and toss a sword in there, the sword or anything made out of netherite just doesn't burn. But hey, if the items don't burn, so why should the player burn? I mean, it makes sense, right? Just give yourself fire resistance infinitely. One of my other favorite things about the Soul Sand Valley is the fact that you can find yourself a bunch of skeletons. And you can also find yourself the bone blocks. And bone blocks, they're actually very useful if you want to get yourself a ton of bones. So that way you can go ahead and get yourself loads and loads of bone meal. or maybe you're making some kind of like graveyard or something like that. That would actually be very, very handy for that. Now, I went in and talked about all my favorite things about the update. So now let's go and talk about some of the negatives. Some of the stuff I absolutely hate about this. And we're going to go ahead and begin with the most obvious one. And that is inside the Soul Sand Valley. You can find yourself a ton of skeletons. And you can also find yourself a lot of ghasts. Now, whenever you're inside this biome, you're literally going to be bombarded by ghast after ghast after ghast. But ghasts, they just literally love to spawn inside this biome. And I just don't like that at all. Because just look at this. If I come right down here, look how many ghasts there are. There are a lot of ghasts. So if you're somebody that doesn't want to get bombarded by ghasts, then you probably want to avoid this biome. Also the skeletons. There are a lot of skeletons that can spawn here. Not as many as ghasts, but there's still a lot of skeletons. Now I kind of wish that Mojang would have introduced like a wither skeleton spawn rate. Because wither skeletons, that just would have been really, really handy for this biome. I think we can all agree about that. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, if you do travel to the warped forest, you can find yourself Enderman upon Enderman upon Enderman. Like, you can find yourself a ton of Endermen. Look at this. Look at the Enderman around here. Now, you can see this as two ways. You can see this as a negative or a positive. I'm actually seeing it as a negative. Because whenever you go into this biome, you just don't want to have yourself, like, loads of Endermen just all over the place. Because if you look at the Enderman in your eyes by accident, then they're just going to go ahead and come right after you. And I just don't want to end up coming to this biome and just finding Endermen, and then I end up getting killed by an Enderman after searching so hard for this biome. And yes, I do understand that we are still currently in the snapshot phase, and things are going to end up changing more than likely in the future, but that's just me saying that I want to see more really cool mobs inside this biome. And hopefully in the future there will be some really unique mobs that you will be able to find. But hey, that's pretty much it for what I wanted to talk about in today's video. And I am loving the snapshot so far. And I am actually quite excited for the piglins. I'm really excited to see what kind of things they're gonna... And I'm quite excited to see what else Mojang... And I'm quite excited to see what else Mojang has in store for this update. Because so far, it is really promising. And I'm also just super excited to see what else Mojang... And I'm also just super excited to see what else Mojang has planned for this, because there is going to be a lot of features coming in. But I do want to hear your thoughts about what you think of this down below in the comments, and what is your favorite feature of the Nether snapshots, and what is your favorite feature so far of the Nether snapshots. And if you enjoyed today's video, then also let me know by leaving a like on it and subscribe so you never miss an upload. For now, I hope you have a logical day, and I will catch you next time. Bye!